DFS students will be engaged in varied opportunities which will help them understand better the assessment process.
A few minutes will start the video presentation. And we hope that you learned something today about the assessing learning outcomes and reporting feedbacks. Assessment is an inevitable part of the teaching learning processes. It determines the effectiveness of the curriculum at the same time. It assesses or evaluates the learner's performance. There are different assessment tools that can be utilized throughout the process where the feedbacks are drawn. Before we show the video presentation, let us know the intended learning outcomes. At the end of this activity, the FS students must be able to achieve the following intended learning outcomes. Number 1. Determine the alignment of the assessment tools and tasks with the intended learning outcome. Number 2. Critique traditional and authentic assessment tools and tasks for learning in the context of established guidelines and test construction. Number 3. Evaluate non-traditional assessment tools, including scoring rubrics. Number 4. Determine the procedure on how grades are computed and reported to parents. And number 5. Compute student grade based on DepEd's grading policy.
For the assessment for learning, the teacher uses different approaches to start the class. The teacher asks students about their idea and knowledge about physical education. Then, he let his students recall their previous lessons in their past grading years to help them with their discussion. After that, the teacher tends to ask a variety of questions throughout the discussion and present some images to observe the different physical activities under the skill-related and health-related fitness. For the assessment as learning, the teacher uses the Socratic method, a short response test, and asks the student to enumerate the components of skill-related and health-related fitness. For the assessment of learning, the teacher conducts recitation after the discussion and let his students to compute their own BMI or body mass index. For us, the assessment for learning and assessment as learning above are both formative in nature. According to the Everly Center, the goal of formative assessment is to monitor student learning to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by instructors to improve their teaching and by the students to improve their learning. The teacher uses different approaches to conduct this formative assessment, for he can keep an eye on the students' progress and provide feedback on a regular basis. The teacher also keeps asking his students a variety of questions to express their ideas and thoughts about physical fitness. Throughout the lesson proper, the teacher uses questioning, recalling, enumerating, the Socratic method, short response test, and recitation to evaluate the learner's understanding and progress during the class discussion.
By tophot.com, summative assessment is an assessment that is administered at the end of an instructional unit in a course. These assessments are intended to evaluate student learning by comparing performance to a standard or benchmark. Examples of these are midterm exams, final exam, or final project. Unfortunately, we didn't observe any summative assessment in Mr. Mendoza's class since this is just a single session that is only a part of the whole unit. On the class that we have observed, here are the intended learning outcomes or objectives of the lesson. 1. Define physical fitness. 2. Identify the concepts and assessments of physical fitness. 3. Apply physical fitness assessments. And 4. Identify the importance of physical fitness assessments. Since it is in a virtual classroom setting, we didn't observe any traditional assessment activity because the teacher utilized non-traditional assessment activities and strategies. For the first objective, using the PowerPoint presentation, the teacher presented the word physical fitness and asked students to share their ideas or define it in their own words. For the second objective, with the use of the PowerPoint presentation, the teacher let the students enumerate the different physical fitness components through a fill-in-the-blanks activity. For the third objective, the teacher asked the students to compute their own BMI or body mass index after presenting the formula to them. And for the last objective, the teacher administered a short response test answering the questions about the importance of physical fitness and how it benefits the students. Upon observing the class, here are the guidelines on task construction that we observed the teacher considered in each assessment activity. 1. Avoid the exact wording of a source or material, for this places too much emphasis on simple memory and barely tests cognitive acquisition at the knowledge level. 2. Provide clear direction. 3. Have students respond to the same questions. And 4. Allow sufficient time for students to answer.
By the way, my name is Mercedita Ballesteros Fernandez and I am 44 years old. Yes. I'm currently teaching at Daniel Maramba National High School, Santa Barbara. By the way, I'm only 7 years in service. Yan. At the age of 45, 7 years only in service. Okay, the Department of Education have guidelines in computing grades of the learners in this new normal education. So, kasi nga, new normal tayo ngayon, di ba? So, we follow the DepEd Order 31 series of 2020, okay, which is the interim guidelines of assessment and grading height of the basic education learning continuity plan. This will require creative and innovative ways of designing optimal, creative and innovative ways of designing designing optimal learning experiences and assessing progress effectively under adverse circumstances. Okay? So in next question please. Okay, in MAPE, diretsuhin ko na. In MAPE, we have the weight distribution of the summative assessment components per learning area for grade 1 to 10. Okay? The assessment components are the written works and the performance tasks. Okay? Sa written works, we have 30%. And then sa performance task, we have 70%. Okay, pero ito yung sa new normal. Pero nung wala pang COVID, sa reading works, we have 40% and the performance task, we have also 60%. So mas nilakyan nila ngayon ng 70% yung performance task kasi nga most likely yung mga bata nasa bahay siya. Okay, so alam niyo naman yan, kapag kamape, mas mataas talaga yung performance task. Ano ba yung mga performance task? For example, sa dancing, sa singing, ano pa ba, sa written, at saka sa, let's say, yung mga arts. Yun yung mga performance tasks na pinapagawa ko sa mga, hindi lang pala ako, halos pinapagawa ng MAPI teachers sa kanilang mga estudyante. Criteria, I think yung kinoconsider namin is the guidelines pa rin. But personally, I have a certain criteria as a teacher, as a MAPI teacher. Okay? During this new normal, nagkaroon ako ng certain criteria. So, first is yung sa summative assessment nila at saka sa performance task. And then, second is kung gaano ka-effective yung pinapas nila. Kasi alam nyo naman ngayon na open naman lahat ng mga bata, di ba? So, paano mo ngayon masasabi na yung estudyante siya talaga yung nagsagot ng summative test niya? Siya talaga gumawa ng performance test niya. Mahirap po paniwalaan yon, lalo na kapag kadalasan ng mga student natin is modular. Okay? So, yung modules na binibigay ng DepEd sa lahat ng estudyante, alam naman natin na mayroon na po yun sa internet. So sa internet din, free din po yung sagot. Okay? Makukuha. Pero mapapansin mo naman talaga, kung nagkukopyahan yung mga estudyante. Kasi halos pare-parehas sila ng pagsagot. And sometimes, nakikita mo rin na halos makopya nila yung pangalan ng kanilang mga kaklase. So, dapat lang na as a teacher, pagtsatsagaan mo siya talagang i-check individually. Okay? Lalo na ngayon. Maswerte na lang ako kasi sa school namin, we have 6 loads, bali 6 na sections yung halos hawak namin by teachers. Pero sa ibang lugar, makikita nyo, mayroon silang load sa MAPE, mayroon din silang load sa ibang subject. So, napakahirap po yun sa part ng isang teacher. Pero, at the end of the day, ang isang teacher talagang biniyayaan siya ng let's say, patience, mahabang pasensya. Okay? Kaya, yun po yung mga criteria ko. Dapat I make sure na i-check ko individually yung mga works at saka makikita ko talaga kung ginawa talaga ng isang bata. Kahit yung isang bata na yan ay they belong to, let's say, medyo mababang section or yung bata na yan nasa star section. Okay? So, those are my criteria in giving grades or computing grades for my students. So, nung wala pang COVID, of course, yung mga parents, nakakausap namin sila kapag card day. Diba? Kapag card day, pumupunta ang parents sa school para kuhanin yung cards. At the same time, mai-encountered mo na rin doon kapag yung mga parents na medyo hindi nila halos maintindihan kung bakit ganun yung grades ng anak nila. Now, paano ko ba yun sinasabi in a special way sa kanilang mga parents? So, ganito lang po yung ginagawa ko. Okay. So, I have with me, okay, so itong new normal din, still, pumupunta pa rin yung mga parents sa school. Actually, sila talaga yung pumupunta sa school. Kinukuha pa rin nila yung card ng anak nila. Now, so bago po magkaroon ng card day, of course, nagbibigay po kami ng let's say, letter to tell their parents na tomorrow will be your card day, so I hope na makausap po kayo. Now, yung isang estudyante ko na may problema unahin natin yung mga may mga problema. Let's say may mga incomplete grades. So sila talaga yung kinokontak ko. Okay, tinitext or tinatawagan ko na sila ahead of time para makausap ko na sila. Now, paano ba ko ba ipapaliwanag in a nice way if their child have a problem? So ganito lang po yun. I have with me my grading sheets as a teacher. Yun po yung Bible natin na tinatawag. Kapag we have ano ba yung tawag dito? Yung parang nasa computer na. At the same time, meron din po akong grading sheets na hard copy. Okay? At the same time, I'm also isa pa rin akong teacher na naniniwala na gumagamit ng class record. Okay? So sa class record na doon, nandun lahat ng mga nandun lahat ng mga grades, nandun lahat ng mga score ng mga student. Nandun din yung tinatawag nating mga binibigyan ko ng merit. Tapos mayroon din akong notes doon na let's say, itong estudyante na to. Diba? Pag nag-check kami ngayon ng module, makikita natin yung makikita natin doon kung gaano kaganda, kung sa sulat pa lang ng estudyante, alam mo na binabasa niya yung module. Tapos sa sulat pa rin ng estudyante, alam mo na talagang palarambog kulang labat in Pangasinan. So, di ba? So, ganun po. I have with me my grading sheets and I have with me yung hard copy na ng grading sheets din, kumbaga. Okay? So, sinasabi ko sa parents na, halimbawa, una, of course, sasabihin mo yung maganda, yung good side, di ba, ng kanilang anak. And then, kung talagang may problema yung estudyante, dapat maging kalma ka kung paano mo i-deliver yung medyo mababang grades sa parents. At the same time, mag-smile ka pa rin kahit na pinapasa na ng parent yung problema sa'yo. Di ba? May encounter niyo yan pagka naging teacher, kapag naging full-time teacher na kayo. Sasabihan kayo ng teacher na, bakit po ngayon nyo lang sinasabi itong problema na to? May encounter nyo pa, and then you have to justify yourself na dapat ginawa mo yung lahat. At the same time, kalma ka lang at saka mag-smile palagi. Okay? So, mapapalambot mo pa rin yung parent, and then at the end of the day, mako-convince mo pa rin siya na hindi pa naman huli ang lahat. Lahat naman ng problema nasusolusyonan naman. Okay? So,
the teacher whom we interviewed was Mrs. Mercedita B. Fernandez, a teacher 3 in Daniel Maramba National High School, and Sir Aljan A. Cacabilos, a senior high school teacher at Arboleda National High School. They stated that the grade computation is based on DepEd Order Number 31 Series 2020, or Interim Guidelines for Assessment and Grading in light of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. This is to provide guidance on the assessment of a student learning and on the grading scheme to be adopted this school year 2020 to 2021 with the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. Students' grades are computed from their written works and performance tasks. In elementary and junior high school, for subjects math, English, and science, written works are 60% of their grade, while performance tasks is 40%. On the other hand, for TLE and MAPE, the bearing of performance tasks is 70%, while the written works is 30%. In senior high school, for academic strands such as UMS, STEM, and ABM, the bearing of written works is 60% and 40% for the performance task. While in TVL and ICT, the breakdown is 30% for written works and 70% for performance tasks. And lastly, for work immersion, the bearing of written works and performance tasks are both 50%. There are guidelines in computing grades that needed to follow. These are the criterion and rubrics. The rubrics and criteria are the basis of the teacher on how they rate their student. The teachers stated that they have their own method or technique in grading their student for determining if the output of the learner was done legally or with dishonesty. This method is still based in the DepEd guidelines for grade computation. They individually examines each activity of their student to know if they're dishonest learners answering their activity, especially in this time of pandemic where the students have access to internet and can search online about their work or exams. When it comes to reporting performance to students, they are conducting parent-teachers conference wherein issuance of school report cards is also done. They encourages the parents' participation when it comes to students' performance and academic progress. During the card day, parents can consult the subject teachers of their son or daughter and raise some concerns and clarify things, especially with regards to the students' grades. There are encounters where the problems of the student towards their grade can be settled in school, so the teacher should conduct home visitation to convince their student to continue their academic journey. Because as a teacher, they believe that no students must left behind.
We have different answers to this question. Some of us said that teachers need to evaluate learning to know their strengths and weaknesses, while others also said that evaluating learning is needed in order for teachers to monitor students' academic growth and progress. Thus, we believe that evaluating learning is a must. We all answered yes to this question. Teachers need to record the results of formative and summative assessment because we believe that using those results, teachers can determine whether the student is doing well in class or not. The first one measures is the initial knowledge of students about a certain topic. So, this needs to be recorded, for this will be used for comparison later on to measure how much knowledge they've acquired during the discussion. While the latter measures how much knowledge did the students gain in the unit or quarter. Thus, these two types of assessments need to be recorded because this can help in monitoring students' performance and progress in class.
All of us answered yes. The teacher prepared a table of specification and the assessment that he administered because we believe that it will act as a guide for teachers in determining the targeted learning outcomes in each activity. Most of us also answered that creating a table of specification allows an instructor to examine if an exam is content valid and covers everything that has to be covered. Thus, it is one of the first phases in the assessment process, so it is very important. One of our group mates said that he aligned the assessment with the intended learning outcomes using the table of specification because he believes that with this, the teacher can easily identify what outcomes are met by the students in a particular assessment. Most of us agreed to the idea that the teacher aligned the tasks in the assessment tools with the intended learning outcomes by setting clear learning objectives at the beginning of every lesson and also by giving clear instructions when assigning tasks to students. We also believe that the teacher makes sure that in every activity or performance there are learning outcomes that the students will met.
Scoring rubrics is a tool to assess students' performance and work. It is very important to both teachers and students. For students, it is important because it will help them evaluate their own works. For teachers, it is important because this will serve as a basis on how they will rate students' works. In the virtual class that we observe, the teacher is not able to finish his lesson because they don't have enough time. Because of that, we didn't get to see him give performance tasks or activities to students, so we are not able to see how he utilized scoring rubrics. Based on what we observed, most of the students are actively participating and most of questions given by the teachers are answered correctly. We can tell that they are very responsive and attentive, and it's maybe because they're very familiar with the topic. However, we noticed that on some part of discussion, some students are having difficulty answering the questions, especially questions that has only one correct answer. Take for instance, the formula in computing the BMI.
According to the teacher that we interviewed, they usually encounter difficulties in computing grades of the learners when they lack of data such as test scores, performance tasks, outputs and projects to be recorded. On the other hand, they encounter problems in reporting students' grades to their parents when the guardian or parents is not present during card day. Problems will surely arise when the parents of the students who have problems with their grades are absent during the issuance of school report cards, because teachers will have a hard time encouraging and motivating these students alone. We believe that parents' participation in students' academic development or progress is very vital.
As the world continuously changes due to technological advancement and innovation, the teaching styles and assessment strategies of teachers are also changing. Our responses to these questions are almost the same. We all believe that assessment offers educators effective ways to reach different types of learners and assess students' understanding through multiple means. Most of us said that assessment process can help them make learning more fun and engaging if that assessment is timely and innovative. Meaning to say, technology is involved. We believe that to catch students' attention and pique their interest, we must design assessments that are relevant and enjoyable given the current situation. And our group's idea is to maximize technology use because students nowadays are becoming increasingly reliant on gadgets.
So most of us answered that establishing a good relationship with students at the very beginning of the class is very important because we believe that this will soon have an impact on their academic performance or progress. As future teachers, that would be our first step to eliminate fear of assessment to our students. Aside from that, many of us answered that they will do their best to be the students' source of motivation inside the classroom by continuously encouraging students to work on their full potential and eventually boost their self-esteem. We will acknowledge every opinion and we will provide immediate feedback when needed, whether it is in a physical or a virtual classroom setting. We will make sure that all of them are recognized so that no
Teachers frequently struggle to evaluate students' performance and provide feedback. Feedback can be either directive or facilitative, with the students being told where they went wrong and given suggestions on how to improve. The teacher will have difficulty computing the grades of those students who do not complete the requirements, such as incomplete quizzes, no exam, and so on, due to a lack of data to be recorded. If I were the teacher, we will respond by teaching students the importance of assessing and evaluating their performance and how it affects their academic growth. To address the challenges of evaluating performance, the best solution we could offer is to keep track of all students who have not yet submitted their work and tell them what they need to do. Encourage them to complete the task and meet the deadlines. We will provide honest criticism and vote positive manner to motivate, boost self-esteem, and create a positive classroom culture. We will also approach them properly without being offended. We will encourage them to do their best because effective feedback allows learners to reflect on their learning and learning strategies, allowing them to make adjustments to improve their progress.
We formulated a unique answer to a common question, but everyone from the group agreed that to design a more interactive and engaging assessment, we should maximize the use of technology. Some of us said that they will never let the diversity or differences of the learners hinder them for attaining each and every learning outcomes. And to make it happen, they will design a variety of assessment that are suitable for the student abilities so that they will be comfortable in accomplishing each task. Since we are now conducting classes virtually, there are some instances that the student may understand the direction or instructions. One of us answered that he will address it by making sure that the instructions are clear to the student before he leaves the class. Most of us also agree that making students are aware of the rubrics and criteria is important for them to know how their performance or output will be graded or assessed. We also believe that giving students enough time to answer assessment will make them more comfortable, and for each assessment, we will consider doing the table of specification first before administering it.
How to compute the grade in TLE Agriculture as learning area. We take an example the grade of Banyas Dominic Duquila. We got his grade from his quizzes 10%, written works 20%, and performance tasks 70%. In his quizzes, which is equivalent for 10%, his total score is 40 out of 40 items. For 100 as percentage score multiplied to 10% equals 10% as weighted score. For his written works, the total items is 60 and he got 30, and the percentage score is 50 multiplied to 20% equals 10% as the weighted score. For his performance task, the total is 40 and he got 31, and the percentage score is 77.5, multiplied to 70%, and the weighted score is 54.25%. His initial grade is 74.25. We got this by getting the sum of his weighted scores in his quizzes, written works, and the performance task. 10% plus 10% plus 54.25% is 74.25%. The initial grade is 74.25. And to find his quarterly grade, please see the DepEd prescribed transmutation table. 74.25% is equals to 83% for his quarterly grade.